Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all here tonight. My name is Jean Flynn. I'm a third year medical student in UCD, and I'm just going to be your opener for the evening. Before we get started, we're just going to put up a little poll, just wondering where you all are from. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here tonight. I don't think any of us could have ever dreamed that we would see this many people um, here at our event tonight. I'm just going to leave this up for a little while. So if you could just put in where you are from, that would be great. Okay, so loads of people from Leinster. I'm from Galway. Um, there's a couple of people from Connacht, which is great to see. It's really lovely to see everyone out, and I hope you guys pick up something worthwhile at this event. So, I said thank you. I think I might just say it again because this is just brilliant. Like we are so grateful to have everyone here, and we're so grateful to see so many people who are interested in studying medicine. Secondly, I just have a few bits of information to pass on just before we get started. You can still enter our book giveaway and by either sharing a story on your Instagram with a picture of the event with the hashtag I look like a medic and tagging us at AccessMed Ireland, like this lovely example on the right, or by tweeting a picture with the same hashtag and tagging us at AccessMed I or E. And also, just a quick disclaimer, we are all UCD medical students, but we have not been paid or sponsored by UCD School of Medicine. These views and opinions that we express are entirely our own. So please ask questions in a Q&A box. The more questions, the better throughout the event. They will be answered at the end, and some of our team are working behind the scenes typing answers, but the most frequently asked ones will be answered live. And just as I'm speaking, I have some notes, I have a mirror, and then I have the camera. So I'll just be looking around, and hopefully that's not too distracting for you all. So, the itinerary for the evening. At 7, the opening remarks by yours truly. Then at 7:05, we have How Do I Get Into Medicine by Claude O'Reilly from Offaly. 7:10 p.m., we have How Do I Get the 95th Percentile in the HPAT and Above by Bevan Toomey from Cork. At 7:25 p.m., How Do I Get 625 in the Leaving Cert from Shay Akinola from Kildare. At 7:35 p.m., The Benefits and Downsides of UCD from Orla Breen from Wexford. At 7:45 p.m., Financial Supports and Scholarships by Patrick McFadden from Roscommon. At 8 p.m., What Happens If I Don't Get In by Iliam Kinsella from Wexford. And at 8:15 p.m., the closing remarks and the Q&A. Now, before I get started, I just want to say thank you so much to our sponsors. We are in the very privileged position to be able to offer 13 HPAT scholarships, which is just incredible. And these are thanks to Medisec, Women in Medicine Ireland Network, the Royal College of Physicians Ireland, and gpbbuddy.ie, as well as Dr. Nikita Egan and 4 wonderful donors who wish to remain anonymous. Now, how do you get into medicine? It's a tough question for a tough course, and one that I'm going to let my colleagues take the brunt of. I know when I wanted to get into UCD medicine, it was just seemed nearly impossible. No one in my school had gotten into UCD medicine before I did. I wasn't the smartest. I wasn't the most hardworking, but one thing I had was determination. I was determined, come hell or high water, that I was getting into UCD medicine, and I had absolute faith in myself. And that's tough. Medicine is a course with a lot of baggage. If you mention to anyone that you want to study medicine, the entire town knows, and you have all these people watching you, and this outside influence can be really distracting. The most valuable thing I can say to you is this. The only thing that is going to work is whatever you know works for you. And that might seem a bit confusing, but you have all these people who will be doing HPAT courses and grinds, and they'll be doing the Pomodoro method of study and active recall, and you'll just be bombarded with everything. But what matters is what you do and what you know works for you. So, for example, I'm terrible at studying. I get far too distracted and I don't stay for very long. But for my leaving cert, what I would do is I would read through a chapter, I would absorb as much knowledge as I could, and then I would go and do another exam question. And then I would come back and I would write down everything I remembered on a sheet. And that really worked for me. Clearly, I got into medicine, but that worked for me. And it wasn't the most effective method of study for others. So do whatever works for you. The next thing I want to say is that stress does not equal success. At some point, you are going to hit peak levels of stress and anxiety, and frankly, you're useless academically until you take a break. And there's no shame in that. But the important thing is that you know when you need to take an evening off from study or a weekend to yourself. And I've just put in this little bell curve here, which is Yerkes-Dodson law. And it basically says that when you hit maximum levels of stress, it's as if you're not doing anything at all because you're physically unable to do something. So stress is important, but you have to keep it at optimal levels so that you can still get the most out of your work. Another thing I'd like to make on stress is that we have this perception that successful people are stressed, and that's really not true. You don't have to suffer to succeed, and you don't have to suffer to validate your success. It's a misconception that I think is quite damaging. You can get through this and you can do it well, and you don't have to suffer for it. In exams, and frankly in life, there's two things you can control: how much preparation you do and your attitude in the exam. You cannot control the paper or the examiner or any other outside mitigating factor. You can only have control over yourself. So that's all you need to focus on is you. Now, okay, I know I've been very egocentric in everything I've said so far, but you need to focus on yourself, but you also need to collaborate with each other. I cannot emphasize this enough. When it comes to notes, when it comes to sharing information, access to information, that's what this entire event is about. You need to share notes. It's how we all got through first year of college, and it's going to help you so much. You need to remember that you don't need to fight to the death with your fellow peers to get into medicine. It's a bit ridiculous. And there's not one type of person who gets into medicine. You all have the innate ability to get into medicine. And I think you need to get it into your head that, of course, you'll get into medicine and everyone can. You just need to put in the work and you need to do what works for you. So the only person that you have 100% of the time through all of this is yourself. So please, please be kind. Medicine is important, but you are the most important. That's all I have to say for now. Best of luck on your journey, and hopefully we might see a few of you around UCD in the coming years. And now I'm going to let Claude O'Reilly take it away.
So, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming to today's event. As Jean said, my name is Claude O'Reilly. I'm a third year medical student in UCD from Offaly. So today, I just hope to give you all a quick overview of what is involved in applying to medicine, including a rough timeline and the general steps that are involved when applying to medicine. So some of you may know a lot of this already, but just as a quick overview. So firstly, my slide's going. Sorry, I'm just going to pause the share really quickly. Sorry about this. And I'm just going to, oh, okay. Sorry, I had a slight issue with my slides there, but I think it should be all working now. So for the CAO, it has to be filled out by the 1st of February, but ideally it should be done by the 20th of January, as if you do it on the earlier date, it will cost you €30 as opposed to €45. Also, you can change this up until the 1st of July, which will be after you get your HPAT exam results. So this brings me on to the HPAT. So what does the HPAT stand for? It's the Health Professionals Admission Test, and it's essentially designed as an aptitude test for students who want to study medicine. And you must do the test to apply to any of the medicine courses in Ireland. So we'll talk a lot about the HPAT exam later on in the talk, but just for now, I'll explain the basics. So the exam is usually sat in February, and in 2021, it was a proctored online exam, which means that the students taking the exam were supervised online to prevent them from cheating. The results for the HPAT are released in June, so you can still amend your CAO after your results come out, provided that you had already put your medicine options on your CAO form from January. You can't add them on, say, after you sit the HPAT. So the HPAT itself is marked out of 300, with the average score being approximately 80 to 100. Students who get into medicine will usually get between 140 and 220 in the HPAT. Most UCD medicine students, at least in the year I sat it, probably got around 190. No one gets 300 or even close to it, so don't worry. It's not an exam you can ever get full marks in. It's really designed that way. Another note on this, some of you might be wondering what percentiles are and why so many people talk about them. So when you receive your HPAT score in June, you will also receive a percentile score at the same time. So this will just tell you how you did in terms of the other students who sat the HPAT in your year. So for example, I sat the HPAT in 2018. So the students who are now in UCD medicine in my year had percentile scores that ranged from 80 to 100th percentile. But this is not added into your Leaving Cert points. As I said, it is only a tool to measure how you did in the context of other students who sat the same exam as you did. So in the Leaving Cert, you will usually sit between 6 and 9 exams, depending on how many subjects you pick, and you will pick your scores from your best 6 when you get your results. These grades are translated into points, which I'm sure you've heard of, and I have a table of the points here on screen now. For medicine, your Leaving Cert points are combined with your HPAT score, and this is used to determine if you meet the minimum points requirement for your first choice on your CAO form. Right, so something that's really important that I didn't know for a really long time, when applying to medicine to put more emphasis on the HPAT, Leaving Cert points that are above 550 points begin to be amended when applying to medicine courses only. This amendment means that every 5 points above 550 gets reduced down to 1. So for example, in my Leaving Cert, I got 555 points, but for my medicine application, that's reduced down to 551. Essentially, this means that above 550 points, your HPAT score will hold more weight than your Leaving Cert score, which is why a lot of people will advise you to focus on doing your absolute best in the HPAT exam first. The combined score for entry in the first round of offers for UCD medicine in 2020 was 737 points when the HPAT and Leaving Cert scores were combined, and the second round of offers looked for a minimum of 736. This idea that 2 rounds of offers is that you get your first round offer a few days after your results come out, and you can choose to accept this offer or not. A few days later, when the colleges know if they have the capacity for more students to join, they release a second round of offers, and often this minimum points requirement for the second round of offers drops slightly. 1 point here may not seem like much, but it really does make a massive difference to a lot of students. So I know that a lot of this information might be completely overwhelming to some of you right now. I know I kind of went through it all very quickly, especially to 4th and 5th year students. So you will really hear so much of this by the time you're filling out CAO forms and applying for courses that it will become completely ingrained in your memory. So I'll tell you now to make sure you have a look at your step-by-step plan to get into medicine, which we've made and we'll give to you after the talk. It'll all be provided for you, and we have all of this information plus more all laid out in order. So there's no need to panic. It's just important to be aware of the process, as it can be difficult to find this information all in one place when you go looking, especially if you make the decision to put medicine on your CAO form quite late, which was very much my situation. So I had always had this idea that you have to know at a really young age what you want to do, especially if it's for medicine. So when I first thought about medicine in 5th year of school, I immediately discounted it. It was only in 6th year that my mom convinced me to go to a careers talk, even though at the time I was completely set on studying music. There, I ended up talking to medical students from UCD and realised for the first time that medicine could actually be something I could really enjoy. A lot of them described being good in school, but not necessarily being the smartest in the class, but I just decided to give the HPAT a go anyway and see what happened. So that's exactly what I ended up doing. And while I definitely wasn't sure about medicine at all before I started the course, within the first week of college, I was so sure I had made the right decision. If you're set in your mind right now about what you want to do for the rest of your life, that's amazing. I'm really jealous of you. But if you're sitting here listening to us speak and you're going, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing next summer, let alone in 1, 2, or even 3 years, Just know that that's completely normal and not at all worth stressing over. Trust me, I have definitely been there. At the end of the day, I just want you all to be informed about what you can do. And I would urge everyone to keep as many options open as they can. Do this by applying early, get every single course that you're interested on onto your CAO form, and give the HPAT a go. You might end up in my situation, prepare to cringe, having the time of your life. I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope to see some of you in UCD Health Sciences in the coming years. So now I'll hand you over to Bevan, who will give you all the know-how on HPAT in much more detail than I ever could. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Clodagh. So my name is Bevan, and today I'm going to be sharing a brief overview on how to succeed in the HPAT exam. So I sat the HPAT in 2018 in my exam centre in Cork, and now I'm in third year med in UCD. So we're going to be taking a scoping overview of each section of the HPAT and what you need to know before sitting the exam. Obviously, I won't have time to share everything I know about the HPAT, but further resources will be available in the database after this talk. So at the end of the talk, I'll also be revealing the answers to the Instagram questions that were posted on the page yesterday. So as Clodagh explained, the HPAT is an aptitude test that all prospective medical students must sit in February, the year that they're applying for medicine. In both the virtual and physical exam, there are strict rules that the students must follow, such as no calculators, no dictionaries, no electronic devices. The exam cost €152.80 in 2021. And today we're so lucky to have 2 HPAT scholarships for 2022 and 11 more HPAT scholarships to come. So best of luck to everybody. So what is the HPAT exam exactly? It's a 2.5-hour exam that's split into 3 sections, as you can see on the screen. So there are no breaks between the 3 sections, but you can request a toilet break at any time during the exam, with the exception of the last 10 minutes of every section. On your table in the exam, you'll have 2 booklets. So you'll have the question booklet, where you'll be doing your rough work, and an answer sheet. This table that I have up on the screen right now is very useful. I had it learned off before going into the exam. It basically breaks down how much time you can spend on every question in the 3 sections. So section 1 and 2 are both respectively worth 40% of the overall marks, and section 3 is worth the other 20%. So let's look at section 1. This section tests logical reasoning and problem solving. So the questions can be divided into 3 categories. So logical reasoning, problem solving, and data interpretation questions. So the nature of the questions in this section means that there'll be a lot of scientific talk and long passages to read. However, no prior knowledge is needed before answering these questions. All the information you need to answer them will be in the question booklet. So sometimes questions can be presented graphically, including tables, graphs, diagrams, flowcharts, but this will be, the standard of the graphs will be the same as junior cert maths. It's not going to be too complicated. So some questions have a stimulus followed by an individual question, and some have a larger stimulus and some more data, followed by a unit of questions to answer. So again, section 1 tests how well you can solve problems and how fast you can interpret and critically analyze information. There aren't many easy questions in this section, and it's the hardest to finish in the given time, but your aim is to complete as many questions as possible, as accurately as possible. So let's look at section 2. This section tests interpersonal understanding, understanding people. Questions present as dialogue excerpts, literary texts, and personal reflections, even cartoons, all demonstrating interpersonal situations. So the passages consist of interactions between various people and ask you to identify the answer that best describes or explains a person's behavior, thoughts, or feelings. And each question is followed by multiple choice questions. To determine if you understand the emotional nuances that are in the passage. This section can be really easy for people that have a high emotional intelligence, but don't dismiss the questions for being too straightforward. I was told that most people get most of the questions right in this section, so you need to put your all into every question. Now let's look at section 3. So this tests non-verbal reasoning, and there are 3 subsections of questions in this section. which include next in the series, missing segment, and middle of the sequence questions. Now, the questions in this section can appear in quite an abstract manner, which means that some students are able to approach the questions intuitively, while others may need a more practical, methodical approach to answering the questions. I fell into the second category, so I practiced this section a lot to improve. And practice really does increase awareness of various patterns and rules in these questions. And also it leads to finishing the questions faster, which is great when you're racing against the clock. So how to approach a HPAT question. So there are two basic approaches. One, solve the problem and move on. Two, you can't solve the problem, skip the question and come back to it. This approach of don't give up, think a little harder, hang in there is a waste of time. If you're getting bogged down and you've tried a different approach, circle the question number, come back when finished rather than racing against the clock. I was told to consider the HPAT like a marathon, and it is. You need stamina, focus, and determination to get through the 2.5-hour exam. All questions are MCQ and they all follow the same basic structure. So if you can't get the answer, just guess. Most students don't get all the questions right. As Clodagh says, no one ever gets the full 300 marks for this section. In fact, most students will get a third of the questions wrong. And that's normal. You will get into medicine, even if you get loads of questions wrong. How do I study for the HPAT? So there's lots of people that I know that didn't study for the HPAT, did the one ACER exam on the website and got into medicine. However, there are a lot of exam tips and tricks that you can learn to improve your score. The way that we all learn varies from person to person, and this is an important consideration when determining the time frame that you will want to study in. Are you someone who likes to study over a few months, or are you a crammer? And ultimately, all comes down to balancing the Leaving Cert and the HPAT. Probably the best thing to do is to practice relevant sample questions that are provided by ACER and from relevant resource banks. I would highly recommend sitting at least one full practice exam just to raise your own confidence. Also, a huge tip is going back to basics when it comes to maths, going over your probability, Venn diagrams, converting fractions to decimals. You won't have a calculator during the exam, so it's time to improve your mental maths. Do some junior cert maths questions might help. The actual maths itself isn't complicated, but definitely worth just familiarizing yourself with the basics. There's also a lot of benefit to reading scientific papers, but be careful when you're looking at papers online because sometimes they take in a lot of prior knowledge. I would recommend maybe looking at National Geographic, reading an article too there. That's probably the level you need to know. Also, another thing is reading medical memoirs that improve your emotional intelligence. If you're looking for a book to read, we have got some amazing ones that we're giving away today, and all of them will teach you a bit more about compassion and empathy. So make sure to enter the giveaway if you haven't already, because the books that we're promoting are really worth a read. Another thing is expanding your emotional vocabulary. This will help in section 2. You don't want to not be able to answer the question because you don't understand what the word like abhorrent means. Okay, controversial time. HPAT prep courses, are they worth it? So HPAT prep courses and grinds are an industry that thrives for a reason. They do help. I availed of a HPAT prep course myself, and I did it because I didn't really know what the HPAT exam entailed, and I was finding it hard to find resources to study from. But prep courses and grinds are incredibly expensive, and they can be a financial burden, which makes them inaccessible for so many students. You can sit the HPAT exam without any grinds, but finding the resources can be difficult and futile unless you get the correct guidance. That's why we're here to help. So AccessMed was set up to introduce a more accessible and feasible way of applying for medicine and ultimately studying for the HPAT. So watch this space, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We have some really exciting projects coming in the future that will really help with your future study. How are the Leaving Cert and HPAT combined? So don't let the clickbait title of my section fool you. You don't need to get over the 95th percentile in the HPAT. Likewise, you don't need 65 to get medicine. You'll get into medicine with a combination of a good Leaving Cert and a HPAT score. And due to the adjusted points, the Leaving Cert points are not as important as you might think, and Shay will talk about that later on. So in this table here, I've highlighted in red all the scores that would have got you into medicine in 2020. So let's take two sample students, Tom and Jerry. So Tom got 625 in his leaving cert. That was adjusted to 565. And then his HPAT score was 180. He had enough points to get into UCD or any medical school he wanted. Jerry got 530 points in the leaving cert, and his HPAT score was 210. He would have also got into UCD. So these two graphs are from the CAO website. I have the link on the screen right now. This is a really handy document that I would recommend reading if you're applying for medicine. You can take a screenshot now, or else it'll be in the database later. Right, okay, now time to go into the practice questions. So I hope that you all had a chance to look at the Instagram page. And now it's your time to share your answers. So I'm going to just put up a poll. And this poll is going to be, so it should be up on the screen right now. And while I read out the question, I would love if everyone could put in what they think is the correct answer. And then I'm going to close the poll afterwards and we're going to work through it. Okay, so Alan, Bob, Charles, David, Emmett, and Frank play cards in 3 teams of 2 people. Alan plays with Emmett or Frank. If Alan is with Frank, then David is with Emmett. If Bob is with Charles or David, then Alan is not with Emmett. If David is with Charles, then Bob is not with Frank. Which of the following must be true? A, David plays with Emmett. B, Bob plays with Frank. C, Alan plays with Emmett. Or D, David plays with Charles. Okay, so I'm going to be closing the poll now. And give me 10 more seconds. Okay. All right, now I'm going to go through the question before I share the results. So here is this white box here. Might look like a lot of just scribbles, but this is the way that my brain interpreted the question, and this is what I would have put down on the rough margin of the question booklet. So I'm going to talk you through my reasoning for answering this question. So firstly, how do we approach it? Alan is the most mentioned in the passage, so we're going to start off with him. So we either know that he plays with Frank or Emmett, so that means that we're going to have two scenarios. So if Alan plays with Frank, then we know David plays with Emmett, and therefore the other 2, Bob and Charles, play together. Scenario number 2, if Alan plays with Emmett, then it means Bob must be playing with Charles, David, or Frank. So if we know that if Bob is with Charles or David, then Alan is not with Emmett. This contradicts that Alan is with Emmett, so therefore Bob must be with Frank, and therefore David is with Charles. However, we're told that if David is with Charles, then Bob is not with Frank, which contradicts our earlier finding. So no combination of players works in this scenario. Alan cannot be with Emmett. Therefore, we have only one viable option. Alan is with Frank, David is with Emmett, and Bob is with Charles. And if I reshare the poll answers, then I hope you can see all the answers now. The correct answer was A, David plays with Emmett. So well done to everybody who got that question right. Okay, so we're going to move. I'm going to stop sharing the poll results now, and we're going to go on to the next question. So this is the section 2 question. I'm going to reopen the poll, but now for this question. And I hope everyone can get a chance to vote in the poll. I'll be also keeping it open while I talk through the question. Okay, so in the following passage, an adolescent boy talks about living with a physical disability. As I have been physically disabled all my life, I have managed to cope with the purely practical problems arising with the minimum of fuss. I felt no loss because I had no feelings of normality to compare with. One of my physical problems is that I'm short, about 120 centimeters tall. I was constantly mistaken by strangers for a little kid. It is a real pain for a 16-year-old boy to be handed a kid's menu every time he enters a restaurant. It is even worse when mere coherent speech is greeted with awe. For the writer, the main problem with his disability is A, the embarrassment of being so short, B, never knowing what it is to be normal, C, dealing with other people's preconceptions, and D, coping with the practical problems caused by his condition. Okay, I'm closing the poll. And I'm going to actually just share the results straight away. Everyone, a huge majority of people, almost 80% of people voted for C. And you'd be happy to know that is the correct answer. So why is that the correct answer? So my approach for this question, especially section 2, would be seeing why the other questions can't be right. Because they all kind of sound similar when you're just reading them quickly, but if you break them down, it should be clear why C is the best answer. So A, the author never states that he's embarrassed at any point. He's frustrated at some point, and he does find that there is practical problems to his height, but it gives us no reason to think that he's embarrassed. B is simply incorrect after reading the passage, and D is incorrect. He has managed to deal with the disability with a minimum of fuss. C is correct because it's the main point he's trying to get across in the passage. Other people's preconceptions is the main problem that he faced regarding his disability. Okay, so now on to the third question. And this is a section 3 question. I'm going to open the poll again. And I hope that you all can see the poll now and start voting away. So this is a missing segment question, which means that you're looking for a slice of the pie to fit into the empty slot here. And I'm going to leave it open for a little bit. I might just talk while the poll is open. I might just talk through how you would approach a question like this. And in a missing segment question, you are looking for a pattern or set of rules that all of the segments adhere to, and the missing one also would adhere to the pattern. Okay, I'm going to close the poll because I think there is a very much a resounding okay, right, show the results here. Yeah, so most people voted for B, and you will be correct. B is the right answer. And I will talk about why. So the way I would approach this question, if you all follow my cursor, I would take a slice of the pie and see and follow one of the subsections. So let's just take a look at the white part here. If we move clockwise across the pie slices, we move one space, then 2 spaces. We're now in the center of the circle, move to the outside, 1 space, 2 spaces, 1 space, 2 spaces. So following this pattern, we'd expect that the white part is also going to be around here. All the rest of the colors also adhere to the same pattern, meaning that when we look at all the slices, we're looking for every color moved in 1 space, and that answer is B. This is a nice question, probably a little bit more straightforward than you'll see in section 3, but it's good to familiarize yourself with looking for patterns. Okay, so if you have any further questions about the 3 sample questions here and the HPAT exam, please submit your questions through the Q&A box. All right, so now it's time for a giveaway. So we're giving away some really amazing books today, and the Being Mortal and When Breath Becomes Air are the 2 first books we're giving away. Personally, I love When Breath Becomes Air. It's one of my favorite books, and if you want to improve your section 2, I would recommend reading this because the author is amazing. And he really does share a lot about compassion and empathy. So the names aren't coming up here, so we're just going to see if we have the names handy. We're just looking for the Instagram handles. Okay, so we're having a bit of technical difficulties backstage, so I might move on and we'll save them after Shay's section. So I'm going to pass you on to Shay, and he's going to share how to ace the Leaving Cert exams.
Thank you, Bevan. Hey guys, thank you for coming. My name is Shay Akinola. I'm going to be giving a hopefully brief talk on how to get 625 points in your Leaving Cert. First off, I don't actually have the secret to getting 625 really easily. That's just up there as a bit of a clickbait. I did not actually get 625, but it is what it is. Only a few people in medicine actually got the full 625, which goes to show how you do not need to get 65 to get in. So you guys should not feel discouraged if you feel like 65 is out of reach. Clodagh and Bevan explained to you guys earlier how any CAO points that you get above 550 have reduced weighting when you're applying for medicine. So here's the conversion table again in case you missed it. In short, every 5 points that you get above 550 gets converted into 1 point. So I'm sure you guys have a teacher in your school that's like a bit wacky, but they really care about their students. I had one myself, and she always said, aim for the stars, land on the moon, which probably sounds hella corny, but it's a good quote. 550 is kind of the sweet spot when it comes to your CAO points, but obviously you want to be aiming as high as possible. Even if you don't exactly hit 625, you'll be better off from where you started and hopefully accepting an offer into medical school. So I'm going to talk a bit about my own experience and what I did to prepare for my leaving cert. But do take it with a grain of salt, because I did my leaving cert in 2018, which was a whole different time compared to this COVID pandemic that we're in right now. I didn't have the same experience of online classes, and it's not completely clear whether there'll be predicted grades or not in 2022. And also, I'm just going to tell you what worked for me. And it's really, really important to do what works for you, as that's the best way to see success. I went to Skullwear Community School, Clane, County Kildare. Shout out to all my people from Kildare. It was an average school, not really known for anything too crazy, besides the one time we made it onto the news after we protested about CCTV cameras being put into our toilets. A question a lot of people have been asking is when to start studying. I only began revising after my HPAT, and even though that still gave me many months to prepare, I did suffer for not starting earlier. I would come home from school, I studied from like 4:30 to 10:30 with no phone and no breaks to make up for the time I missed. And it might seem difficult to start studying for your leaving cert back in September or October if the pressure has not begun to sink in. But trust me, you'll be thanking yourself in June when you see how fast you'll be able to relearn what you've studied months before. And when it comes to your mocks, don't get too worked up about them. Your HPAT is a lot more important. Don't be afraid to spend more time on the HPAT than studying for the mocks. The mocks can give you a good idea of where you're at, but they don't predict your leaving cert results. For example, I barely got a H6 in maths in my mocks, which was a huge wake-up call for me. And then I ended up getting a H1 in June. I'm assuming most of you have already picked your subjects, so I won't spend too much time on this, but pick the subjects you like, because you'll find things so much easier when it's time to start grinding. And keep in mind that some courses require you to study 1 or 2 science subjects. Okay, so how to prepare. I really need to emphasize that you have to do what works for you. Like, the method you pick has to be something that gets you results, but also something that you can do consistently. My classmates and I all study in different ways, and don't think that you have to do what the person beside you is doing. I personally am a visual learner, so I mainly read textbooks, and they were long enough, so when I took the time to read them, they would explain things to me really well, and I'd be able to understand the topic. And then I would then test my understanding by doing loads of exam questions on the topic I just read. Some people do very well from doing questions with the book open beside them. Others really benefit from grinds and having someone explain things to them out loud. Find out what works for you and stick with it. Anki is a really popular website amongst med students where you can study by using online flashcards, so I'd recommend it if you like stuff like that. It's super, super important to look after your mental health during your preparation. Like, sometimes you might feel like you don't have the time to take a break, but if you don't, you might become overwhelmed by it all and burn out, being completely exhausted and not being able to study effectively for a period of time. So you got to find out what's your sweet spot of productivity and relaxation, and you'll be able to keep that level of performance without falling behind. Now, I'll quickly go over a few tips for the core subjects as well as the sciences, because I think most people here can benefit from them. And I'll skip over all the obvious ones like doing your homework and going to class and reading the question during the exam. For me, English was a subject I took a long time to begin improving in. For my other subjects, I knew I had to study, I had to memorize. So I procrastinated doing that for as long as I could manage, but I didn't know what to do for English. So I'll spend more time on this subject because some of you guys might feel the same way. Writing technique and exam technique are more important skills in English than in most subjects. Most of the marks are going for how you say something and not for what you say. So make sure you're always double checking that you're directly answering the question. It's easy to get caught up in the point you're making and start flying off on a tangent. So I would always ask myself every 2 or 3 lines that I write if what I was saying was even relevant. In my school, I was taught about the SEQ structure, which a lot of schools have something similar to. Essentially, the paragraphs of the body of your answer should begin with a statement of the point you were making. It should then be followed by you going into more detail to justify your point, while integrating a quote from the comprehension or your study text into your explanation. For the composition section, learn the techniques of your favorite writing style, whether it's speeches or short stories. And when practicing exam questions for your teacher to correct, make sure you stick to the same few writing styles. For paper 2, I don't have too much to say. Just have your quotes ready. And as long as you understand your characters and themes, you'll be able to come up with points that can be justified with your book a load of quotes. So for Irish, if you were like me and you had no hope at all at being fluent enough for the exams, what might work for you is learning off essays. This worked for me for all the literature as well as the oral. What really helped was saying my essays out loud when I was studying, so that like the sequence of words became like song lyrics. So I'd always say them in the right order, and I'd noticed when I missed a word or if I missed a line. And then in June, I only had to make like really small changes to make sure my answers were in line with the keywords of the question. Maths is all about understanding and then practice. There are a lot of formulas and a lot of question styles, and it's only by understanding the purpose and the logic behind these formulas that you'll know when to adapt them and when to apply them to exam questions. And I won't lie, like a lot of the times it's not obvious, but by doing exam questions, you will learn about most of the different tricks and applications. And sometimes you may still not understand the question or where the answer for it came from. But in those cases, you can bring the questions to your teacher and have them explain it to you. Okay, biology. For me, biology was completely a memory test. The exam primarily consists of definitions and diagrams. So by putting time into studying, it's very possible to get a H1. Flashcards are a really good way of studying for this. Chemistry was my hardest subject. Along with maths, I put the most time into it. My chemistry teacher kind of went AWOL and quit our school halfway through 6th year, so my class had to depend on the book for a few chapters. And understanding the science in the chapters and how everything interacts with each other is really, really important. A lot of the questions are direct, but some of them aren't. And when you get to a certain level of understanding, all of the exam questions will look very straightforward all of a sudden. And YouTube videos also really help me understand some sections like organic chemistry. Okay, physics. That's another subject where understanding the logic and the science within each chapter is really important, because I found that in physics, many questions left it up to you to figure out what formulas needed to be applied, similar to a maths exam. And a lot of them aren't straightforward, but by practicing exam questions and really understanding the purpose of those formulas, you'll get really good at figuring it out. So hopefully these tips will work for you, but don't forget, this is just what I found helpful personally. So you have what's most important is doing what works for you. So I spent a lot of time ranting, so I should probably pass it on to Orla to talk about the benefits and the disadvantages in going to UCD. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Shay. So my name is Orla Breen. I'm from Wexford, and I'm going to be talking to you about the benefits and disadvantages of studying medicine in UCD. So before I finalised my CAO, I was really torn between UCD, Trinity, NUIG and RCSI, and I really didn't know what the differences, the day-to-day differences were between them. So hopefully I'll give you a little bit more insight into that right now. So first, the advantages. So UCD is a fantastic university within the top 1% of higher education institutes worldwide, and is the top medical school in Ireland. And it has a really big, beautiful campus in Belfield. When I was filling out my CAO, everyone told me that this campus was too big, UCD had too many students, and I wouldn't know anyone when I was there. But actually, I didn't find this at all. Overall, it does have a really large campus, but medical students mostly spend their time between the science and the health science building. You can see them there on the screen. So you really do get to know lots of familiar faces around the place. There's over 80 societies in UCD, so think MedSoc, LawSoc, MusicSoc, DramSoc, really whatever you're into, there's probably a society for that. And there's over 50 sports clubs as well. So everything from football, camogie, hockey, badminton, to more exotic things like mountaineering, surfing and trampolining. And joining clubs is a really great way to make friends in different courses, and especially in older years as well, because they can be really helpful for advice just about college life. So campus has loads of fantastic amenities. You can see lots of them there. A really nice 50-metre swimming pool, cinema, brand new 400-metre synthetic track, and a debating chamber. And one thing I will say is that the UCD Clubhouse bar doesn't really stand up to other college bars. So A massive benefit of UCD is it's a 6-year course and there's no option for 5 years, unlike Trinity, UCC, RCSI and NUIG, which all are 5 years or have options to do it in either 5 or 6 years. And although it might seem like a waste of time to do this extra year, I couldn't recommend doing pre-med enough. Technically this is called stage 1, but everyone kind of refers to it as pre-med. It's just a year that brings you up to the same level as everyone else in your sciences, and this means that you only need to do one science before coming to UCD, while the 5-year courses you'll require at least 2. So you can do any of the 3 sciences for UCD. I would recommend doing chemistry because it's probably the most relevant, but you can do any 3, just one of them is fine. Pre-med is really a chance to relax after sitting the Leaving Cert, and it gives you a fantastic opportunity to get to know your classmates before the hard work starts. So when you're there, everyone will say it's not bad, you don't need to study, but the content can seem very hard, but the exams really aren't as hard at all compared to the LC, and you will be able to do so much outside during college. Like for example, I had a job during the semester at weekends, and it was definitely very doable, so don't worry about that. I found physics very difficult in pre-med, but there'll be lots of people on your course who did fantastically at this for the Leaving Cert, so don't worry, make sure you ask lots of friends and work together for those. Some other benefits of UCD are it's really accessible from all over Ireland. So I'm from Wexford, and UCD was a really handy hour-and-a-half bus away. There's loads of transport from all over the country, whereas I really struggled to find transport options to UCD or UCC and NUIG without driving myself. I would have to go through Dublin to get to any of them. Another thing is that UCD is linked with the Mater and St Vincent's Hospital, which are both fantastic hospitals for their clinical placement. And also in UCD, every year you have chances to do electives, which are modules that aren't related to medicine that you can do just for out of interest. So this can be anything you like, from psychology to creative writing, even to intro into massage. And for example, I did Spanish in pre-med, which I had never done before. So onto the important social life. I was quite worried before I came to college that med students would have to spend all their time studying and they would have no social life at all, when in actuality there's a fantastic social life in medicine. So MedSoc, which is the medical society here, organises events like MedBall, which is so fun, and Med Gala. They're big events that everyone goes to, and it's pretty much like the Debs every year. So there's some lovely photos of us from last year at the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory theme. Medweek is another event that they organise where the whole med school will take to the streets at 6 a.m. to book a collect for different charities. So this is really fun and a great way to give back to different charities around Ireland. Some other events then are a weekly tag rugby, basketball. There's a Meg Cup, which is a big day off college, where everyone takes part in a massive inter-year soccer tournament, and a society ski trip. Of course, all of these are optional, but they are very fun. Your class rep also is then going to organise trips for the whole class. So in pre-med, we had a really fun trip to Budapest that really cemented all our friendships and made sure that we kind of got to know everyone really well. We went to Krakow then in first med, and several trips around Ireland. Sorry, I'm saying first med there. That's actually your second year, so it goes. First med is technically stage 2. UCD is also located only 10 minutes away from town, so you're really close for all the nights out, very close to nightclubs, and the taxi back is only €15, so between 4 people back to UCD. And I was worried about that you wouldn't be able to go out at all, but definitely you can, and there was a lot of times in pre-med that we were going out twice a week, so there's no need to worry. So then moving on to the disadvantages of UCD, and most of these will be associated with the high cost that's associated with going to UCD. So it is located in Dublin 4, which is the most expensive area of Dublin, and it is in the midst of a rent crisis, meaning accommodation can be expensive and difficult to find. I lived on campus in first year, and while it was really fun and I would recommend it, the cheapest accommodation there is over €850 a month, which is extremely unaffordable. So don't worry if you can't live on campus. I had lots of friends that were who lived at home and commuted, or they lived in digs or in other house shares, and it was fine. You won't miss out. So another downside to UCD is the scholarships aren't super wide reaching. There are not many options for those from lower incomes. The Ad Astra scholarships are available only to those who get 625 points, and on top of that you have to complete an interview that will examine your extracurriculars. So everyone who gets 625 won't get in on Ad Astra. There are entrance scholarships that UCD give to everyone who gets over 560 points. However, there's no bursary, so you won't get any money for this, and it's just kind of associated with kind of prestige about it. But Patrick will talk in a lot more detail about the scholarships, other scholarships you can get. Finally, pre-med can seem really daunting, as you're likely coming from schools where you're used to coming top in your class and everything, and getting really high grades. When you come to college, you're suddenly going to find yourself as a very small fish in a big pond of people who are all used to doing really well. At times, the sciences can seem irrelevant, as they won't specifically be tailored to medicine. On the right here, you can see a question that haunted me in pre-med, which was trying to measure the weight of a fish in a moving elevator. You might be wondering how that's related to medicine, and the truth is, it isn't at all. Basically, in pre-med, you're going to get a basis in science, in all the different sciences, and you'll have it much more depth than you're actually going to need for medicine. But don't worry, when you get to first med, which is second year, you get down to all the classic, really interesting medical topics. So think your cardiac, respiratory, vascular, biology, and lots of practical anatomy with cadavers. So thank you so much. I'm now going to pass you over to Patrick, who's going to discuss the financial supports and the scholarships that are available.
Thank you very much, Orla. So yeah, my name is Patrick. I'm a third year med as well from Roscommon. I know it might not sound like I'm from Roscommon, but I can assure you that's where I went to secondary school. So I know med may seem quite elitist, and it seems like all the medical students come from families of doctors. You know, they have loads of money just to throw at courses, but it's not always the case. There's people like me and you who are probably the first in your family to want to do medicine. It can be very overwhelming, especially when you're trying to figure out like, how in the world am I going to afford to pay for to fund myself for 6 years of medical school? Well, I'm here to tell you that there is ways to get the support and funds that you need. It just shouldn't be as difficult as it is to find out about them. So today I'm going to go through all the financial supports and scholarships that are available if you're doing medicine. That doesn't mean that they're just for medicine. So some of them would be solely for medicine, but most of them you'd be able to apply for if you're not doing medicine. And then there's a lot more scholarships that are available if you're not going into medicine. And everything I talk about here today is going to be on a database that we made. It'll have information on requirements, deadlines, links to applications, and we'll make that available to you at the end through a questionnaire. So I'll start off by saying that your guidance counselor is there to help. Do take advantage of them. When I was in school, I was trying to figure out how to get into medicine, what the HPAT is, how to study for it. And my guidance counselor didn't really know much, so we had to kind of do the research together. I strongly encourage you to talk to them if they don't know now, because then they could gather information and have it available for future students in your position. So I'll start off by talking about Susie. Susie is the main financial support for students in Ireland going to college. You want to apply as early as possible. Applications will open in April and close in July, and that's in your 6th year. So you apply for them while you're in 6th year. Late applications can be accepted under certain circumstances. However, try to get them in on time. You can check your eligibility on the Susie website. There's a questionnaire that you fill out, and it lets you know if you'll be able to get Susie. And don't forget to tick Susie on your CAO application. That just lets Susie know when you've been accepted into your course. So Here and Dare are from the same organization, but you can get both of them. Dare is just for students with disabilities, and you would have to provide proof of disability in order to get that. You apply to both of these through your CAO, and they're more of an access route to education than like a scholarship or a grant. They provide a support system while you're in college. You can get book grants, mentoring programs, priority for some financial aids and scholarships, and you can get up to 20% reduced points. However, there's like limited number of places in each course for those. So, apply for Here and Dare if you're eligible, but do not count on getting the reduced points to get in. And there's 6 criteria. You have to meet 3 of them. So as you can see here, it's a combination of income and 2 of the other ones. There'll be a link on our database, or if you just wanted to Google Here, you can go onto this part of the website and click into each of these criteria, and it'll explain exactly what they mean. And when you're in college, if you do need other support, contact your college's access or disability office, and they should be able to help you. There are some grants that you can apply for. So the credit union do scholarships that they give out. It is unique to each credit union. So whichever branch you're with or whatever credit union you're with, go onto their website and there should be information on that. St. Vincent de Paul also do grants. You'd have to contact your regional branch. And then we, thanks to our amazing sponsors, have 2 scholarships to give out today and 11 at a later date. So there'll be more information on that at the end of the talk. So I'll talk about scholarships now. The 1916 bursary is a scholarship in Ireland. So there's 40 in total. They give 8 per college, and you apply for this one when you are in your university. So each university has their own application on their website, and you do that when you're accepted. And then the rest of these are unique to each university. So UCD have Ad Astra that Orla talked about earlier. There's an application interview process. You do get accommodation reserved on campus on top of the money, and you can join after pre-med if your GPA is very high. However, we know students who had like incredible GPAs after pre-med and didn't even get an interview process, or didn't even get an interview. And then Ad Astra also have performing arts and sports scholarships. And I'll just point out that that UCC and NUIG have entrance scholarships. All colleges have them, but UCC and NUIG do give you money if you're in the top scorers of the Leaving Cert entering that year. I think for UCC, it's like €1,000, and NUIG, they give out 1,500. And then also, if you're from Roscommon or Donegal, I would recommend that you check out the Pauline and Bunny Jones CAO scholarship and the Optum scholarship if you're thinking of going to NUIG. There are a number of grants and scholarships that have no application at all. Don't worry about these. You'll be contacted if you win. You can see me on the right there accepting the All Ireland Scholarship back in 2018. So a number of these scholarships and grants do require you to write like a personal statement or essay. I'll just go over some quick points on how to write a good one. So this is formula you can follow here. Start off by talking about your trials to triumphs. So your original goals, how and why they changed, challenges that you faced along the way, and how you eventually overcame them. Talk about your university and career goals, and then go into your family and financial situation, what you've done so far to pursue your career goals, and how receiving the scholarship will help you. And if you can fit more, there's some other points you can put in, like your life goals, community involvement, leadership position, reasons for going to college, and role models. However, they a lot of these will have like a word count around 500 words, so it'd be quite hard to fit all that in. And then some quick do's and don'ts. Do include the name of the scholarship in your conclusion and write a brief thank you to those who are reading it. And don't use phrases like I deserve or I should be awarded because, and don't sound like you're saying pick me. And don't address the prompt within the first sentence. So some of them will have like a question that they want you to answer in your essay. Don't just like straight away answer the question. You want to make it more indirect. So I'll talk about student loans now. Make sure that you have a bank account before you go to college. You can get overdrafts with these up to €1,500 with little to no interest. And then you can get loans from your bank or credit union. The thing with loans in Ireland is that you have to start paying them back right away. However, AIB do have an option to pay back just interest on the loans until you graduate, and then you start paying back the rest. However, it works out a lot more expensive in the long run. So only go for this option if you really have to. And the best option probably is to check with your credit union because they are like very flexible, really nice people. I'd say check with your credit union before you go with your bank. And if you don't have a job, you will need a guarantor to take out a loan. So it would usually be one of your parents. So I'll talk about tuition. So almost everyone here will qualify for free fees, which is where the government pays for your tuition. All you have to have been was like living in the EU or the UK for at least 3 of the 5 years before you enter university. If you're unsure about whether you are eligible for that, just look it up and there'll be information online. On top of that, there's a student contribution charge, which is $3,000 per year. However, if you have SUSI, this is completely covered. But the student levy is something that we all have to pay. So I've listed here the prices of the student levy in universities that offer medicine in Ireland. You can see that RCSI is quite expensive, but you do get a brand new Apple MacBook in RCSI. I think you might even get 2. I'm not too sure about that. And then in medicine, we have a health screening that we do in first year. So it consists of like blood tests, vaccines, and TB tests. It varies depending on what vaccines you had before, but it's usually around 280 to 300 euros. And then if you don't have a laptop, that is another cost you have to take into account. So like Orla said, on-campus accommodation can be quite expensive. So I've listed here the cheapest accommodations per year in the colleges that offer medicine. These are paid in quite big installments. So if you're finding it hard to keep up with those, contact your residence office and you should be able to set up a monthly payment plan. So as much fun as being on campus is, off campus is definitely the cheapest way to go. Digs, which is where you live with a family, and shared rooms are the cheapest. In first year, find friends that you can live with, look over the summer, and don't leave it until the last minute. You can look on places like daft.ie, rent.ie, and Facebook groups. And keep an eye out for students that are graduating because their rooms will be free. And then to the right, I have the average monthly rent for single rooms off campus in Dublin, Galway, and Cork. This is going to vary quite a lot. So the closer you are to the university, the more expensive it's going to be. If you go for digs and shared rooms, it's obviously going to be a lot cheaper. And Dublin has 3 different universities that offer medicine, and UCD is in the most expensive part of Dublin. So we're going to have the highest rent. So we came up with this cost of living per month of an average student in college. There's quite a lot of debate on this because it varies a lot. Don't be discouraged by the high numbers because you can definitely cut this down by a lot. Just some tips. Don't forget to budget because you don't want to end up in a position where you've spent too much money. So plan out what you're going to spend each month. Shop in Lidl and Aldi because they're cheaper. You want to cut down on takeaways because they will add up. Use a bike so you don't have to take the bus, and work over the summers and weekends so you can save up. So we have books to give away. Here are 4 winners. I'm not going to make a fool of myself trying to read them out, but if you are one of these, DM us on Instagram to find out how you can get the book. And thank you, everyone. I'm going to pass you on to Iliam now.
Hi, everybody. My name is Iliam. I'm just going to bring up my section here now, which is about what to do if you don't get into medicine the first time. Personally, this is what happened to me. And hopefully, if any of you here are in 6th year and have just done the HPAT, this information might be useful to you. And similarly, if any of you are in 5th year, maybe you'll remember this just as a backup and just to know it's not the end of the world if it does happen. So first off, you'll find out in June or find out at the end of June when you've done your leaving cert what the case will be. I think, as we've mentioned, you'll know if your HPAT is good enough to get into medicine. If it's too low, you'll kind of have an idea whether it would be very close or whether you won't get in. The first thing to do at that stage is just to take a very deep breath. I know I've been there before. You'll have the whole summer to kind of figure out what you want to do, whether you want to amend the CAO, go into a different course, whether you want to pursue medicine. There are certainly a lot of options available to you. At the end of the day, it won't make any difference to you. Once you get into medicine, it won't matter if you've taken a year out, if you've taken 2 years out. Once you're in there, you're in, and you're in the same boat as everyone else. You got the full 5 or 6 years, perhaps, to get going. So first off, I'd just like to talk a bit about my journey. As you can see on the left there, that was me in the summer before 6th year. And then that is hopefully where I will be at the end of 6 years. So first off, I did the leaving cert. I didn't do TY, so I did the leaving cert after 5 years in secondary school. I got what was by all means a good leaving cert and a good HPAT, but unfortunately I ended up 5 points short of medicine. So that meant that because I hadn't done TY and I knew I could do a bit better in my leaving cert, I fancied my chances at doing it again. I have to say, I got a shout out to my mom, my grandparents, everyone at my school. They certainly supported me in that decision, and they gave me the opportunity to redo it in my school. So thankfully, at the end of that year, my leaving cert did go up by 30 points, but unfortunately, the HPAT did go down, and that's something I do want to stress that while redoing the leaving cert, you can certainly do better, you can do worse, but the HPAT, there is no real guarantee that you'll do better. Plus, a lot of it is competing against other people. There's no guarantee. I wouldn't go into it thinking that you will definitely do better because there is the chance that you'll do worse. It's so much based on what you do on the day. So at that stage, I had the points to get into science, so I chose to do science in UCD. I thought that I would redo the HPAT while I was in first year of science. If it went well, I would go into medicine. If not, I would continue with my science degree and see where it went from there. So thankfully, after redoing the HPAT in the first year of science, I spent my whole Christmas break, which you get quite a substantial Christmas break in college, redoing the HPAT. First few weeks of the spring semester, so like January, February, I kind of let college work slide a bit. And then I focused on the HPAT and I got in. Thankfully, because I reapplied to UCD, I got into second year of UCD, which, as Orla said, is called First Med. I'm going to explain that a bit later. First off, I'm going to go through the options you have if this is this boat you find yourself in. So just like there are many ways to skin a cat, there are many ways to get into medicine the second time. So you could redo the Leaving Cert and HPAT like I did. You could redo just the HPAT if your Leaving Cert's good enough, or maybe if you haven't done the HPAT at all yet. You could look at graduate entry medicine or mature entry. Those are options that I'm going to touch on now, but we'll hopefully have more resources on in the future. And then for the fourth option, you could go abroad to the UK or Europe. Again, I'm going to touch on that at the very end. So firstly, redoing the exams, so reading both the Leaving Cert and HPAT. Like there is a cutoff point that if you don't get higher, let's say around 520 in the Leaving Cert, you should you may have to consider redoing it. Like there is the option that you would do very well in the HPAT, but again, it's not something that you really want to be putting all your eggs in one basket on. You can carry Leaving Cert points from multiple years, but the HPAT has to be from the year that you're applying. That means you can't do it in fifth year. You can't you can't use a HPAT score from a previous year. You have to do it the year that you applied in the CAO to do medicine. And again, there is no guarantee. So while redoing the Leaving Cert, odds are you'll do better. The Leaving Cert doesn't change very much from year to year. Subjects like maths, chemistry, biology, the same stuff has been on it for the last 20 years. So you should do better in that extra year will give you the edge. But the HPAT, again, it just depends on how you do on that day in February. Redoing just the HPAT, I think this is by far the easier of the two options if you have the Leaving Cert points to go with it. So there's two ways that I know people who've done it. One of those I've done myself, the other one I've chatted to other people about who are in our course. So the first one is to take a year out and just focus on the HPAT. Theoretically, you'd get a job, you'd work kind of full-time, part-time, whatever, and then you would study for the HPAT while you're doing that and do it in February. Now that might seem a bit hard to manage a full-time job while doing the HPAT, but because you're not also balancing like 6 or 7 other exams, you'll find that you have a lot more headspace to focus on it and that you might be able to get more information on it there. So second option is what I did personally, is if you go into another course and redo it in your first year. There is no comparison between the first year of a college course and the Leaving Cert. The Leaving Cert is probably one of the hardest exam periods that you'll ever do in your life. So you certainly have a lot more time, especially with Christmas breaks and the weekends, etc. Again, I just like to stress that there is no guarantees with the HPAT, but certainly this would be the easier way to do it. So third, and there's some pros and cons to doing it this way. That I just like to illustrate. So first off, like a pro, an unexpected one is your new course may surprise you. You may find out that it's actually what you want to do and then take medicine backseat in a moment. And similarly, you go into medicine more mature and ready. And even if you end up in UCD and you go to second year, or if you end up back in first year in Trinity or RCSI or NUIG, you're just that much more mature. You hit the ground running. You've already been through freshers before, and you're just ready with the whole college experience and you're ready to get going. The cons are that you may lose out on the free fees that Patrick were talking about because you'll end up repeating first year of an undergraduate course. Similarly, it might make you ineligible for certain things as you're repeating year. So it might make you ineligible for SUSI, for other scholarships and grants. Again, that's something that you need to consider and look at individually. Then this is what I did specifically. So because I'd already been in UCD for a year, I decided that UCD was where I wanted to end up. So that was my first choice for medicine when I redid the HPAT. I just wanted to end up there. That's where my friends were, and that's where I got a good feel for the place at that stage. Now, if you repeat, or if you get into medicine after doing a year of college and you end up in, say, Trinity, where you'll have to do first year, you won't get free fees for that year. You'll be expected to pay the tuition, you won't apply for SUSI, etc. UCD, however, has pre-med, which is our first year. And if you've already done a year of a science-based course, so if you've done something like science in UCD or science in Trinity or biomedical science, anything science-based, you have the option of going into second year, which is first med. The UCD School of Medicine will send you a letter when you've got your place. They'll ask you to talk about what sort of subjects you've done. So I gave all the list of my modules in science. I'd done like biology. I'd caught up a bit on the physics that I hadn't done in school. And they have a panel that looks at it. They think you're grand to go ahead. They'll let you skip pre-med because there's no point in you repeating all that science. That kind of allowed me to go into second year. And because I'd done first year in one course and second year in another, technically I hadn't repeated any years. And so I still got my free fees. I had to go into the college office to make sure that they were aware of that. I had to contact Susie to make sure they were aware of that, but it all worked out in the end. And similarly, like while I was in science, there was 3 other people. I think there was a few other people that joined from other courses in like NUIG, and we all ended up in medicine in second year, and it all worked out for all of us. So again, this is like a well-trodden path that they don't make you straight aware of, but it's certainly something to consider. Thirdly, like if you don't get in, like personally, if I hadn't gotten in on my 3rd try, I think I would have continued with my science degree and then saw about going into medicine by graduate entry. And it is a different exam, and you have to complete usually like 4 years of an undergraduate degree, and you need to get a minimal level in that degree. So you need to get a 2-1 4-year degree. Similarly, if you do a degree of science, you can do that after 3 years. It does help to do a science-based degree, but there are people who go in with like law, with commerce, with arts and humanities. As long as you've completed an undergraduate degree, you can apply for this and you can be considered. We'll have more information on that in the future, so do stay tuned to our social media accounts when we kind of get people who've done this route to come in. Similarly, there's mature entry that perhaps the college is not a financial liability at the moment. There are certain places available for that once you hit the requirements. Now, finally, what I like to talk about is going abroad. So you don't have to just do medicine in Ireland. Again, that was something that I looked at as well. So in the UK, you have the UCAT exam, the BMAT. This is it's a similar sort of exam. It has similar aspects to the HPAT, but it does have different elements like essays. And in every uni except for Edinburgh in the UK, it does have an interview process. So it takes other things into account. It's not the same as the HPAT in that it's just like a 1 day, 2.5-hour exam and then you're done. Other than that, you can kind of look at Europe. So you can study like medicine through English in places like Hungary, Poland, the Czech Republic, Italy. There's many more. These are all taught in English. They usually go on a predicted grade system. So if you're in 6th year or you're going to 6th year next year, you can give them like, get your teacher to sign off on what they think your grades would be. And then when your grades do come in, that kind of secures your place. It's something to look at, but the deadlines vary with each of them and the fees do vary between all of them. So with all that in mind, I'd just like to lay out that like if you've done the HPAT already and you're expecting your results, it's not the end of the world if you don't get in the first time. Similarly, if you're going into 6th year and you're really worried about it, like forget about the HPAT when you've done it. And once you get your results, it isn't the end of the world. Like my Nana's prayer cards did work out in the end and I got in after 3 years and I'm happy where I am. I'll graduate the same as if I gotten into HPAT gotten the HPAT results in the first time. So it really is nothing to stress out about. If you really want it, it's very achievable. So with all that said and done, I'm going to pass you on to Blue there now, who's going to talk about our Q&A and about further giveaways and scholarships. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Hang on. Oh, let me just share my screen. Give me 1 second. Oh. Okay, I hope everyone can see that. Hi, everyone. Oh, okay, there you go. Hi, everyone. I'm Blue. Thank you so much for coming to our event tonight. Hang on, there you go. 2 weeks ago, my housemates and I, who you can all see here, we're discussing how unfair it is that the HPAT exam and the courses are so expensive. So we decided to do something about it. We originally planned on doing a very small, chill night where we just talked about experiences. We thought maybe 50 people would show up if we were lucky. We could have never, ever imagined that. I think there's about like 800 people, over 800 people on here. So thank you so much. Before we get into the Q&A and also to give you guys time to, fill in that Q&A box at the bottom, there's just a few things I need to mention. So here we go. So yeah, so firstly, there's going to be a post-event survey that will be sent to your emails. Please fill it out so we know what you'd like to see from us in the future. By filling it out, you can also access the list of free resources to use for to study for the HPAT, a step-by-step guide with deadlines for applying to medicine, and a database of financial resources and scholarships that are available to students. We also really want you to fill it out because we want to know how best we can support your application to medicine. You know, we haven't been doing the application process, you know, we're all in third year, so we haven't been doing the application process for like 3 years. And so we want you to tell us how can we support you? And, you know, we're thinking of doing like some talks, a mentoring program maybe. So, you know, give us some ideas and let us know. So I know you're all curious about the HPAT scholarships. So after our event today, we'll be emailing 2 lucky attendees who will be receiving a fully funded HPAT exam for February 2022. And thanks to our sponsors, we've also managed to get another 11 HPAT scholarships. These will have to go through an application process, which we'll announce shortly. So keep an eye on our social media, and also in the survey, you have an option to sign up to email updates. And so please give that one a tick as well. Okay, this might be a bit long, but we would not have been able to do this event at all without the support of all these lovely people on here. Firstly, on the topic of HPAT scholarships, a massive thank you to Dr. Sarah Fitzgibbon from Women in Medicine Ireland, who has funded one of the ones we'll be giving away today. She has constantly advocated for the underrepresented in the medical field. So if you're a current or a future female medical student, please sign up to the email updates on their website. They do like a hashtag Sunday Women where they celebrate a leading female doctor or someone in the medical field, and it's great to have a look at. Secondly, another massive thank you to Miss Ruth Shipsey, who runs Medisec. They help provide medical legal support and guidance to doctors in Ireland from the time they pick up their first stethoscope to retirement and beyond. These 2 wonderful people are the reason why we're able to offer 2 HPAT scholarships today, so thank you. And sorry, just a little bit more. We're able to offer the other 11 HPAT scholarships thanks to Medisec again, the Royal College of Physicians in Ireland, Med Cafe, Dr. Nikita Deegan, and there's also a few anonymous donors. And as I said, there is going to be an application process on this, so keep an eye on our social media. Lastly, regarding the book giveaway, these are again thanks to Medisec and also Professor Tubbity, who donated us his memoir. So a big thank you to them. And we also wouldn't have been able to run this event without the support of Mr. Shane Hartigan and his wonderful team at IMS Limerick, and they were so kind to give us tech support. You know, because we never imagined there'd be like over 800 people on our Zoom, so we couldn't have done this without them. So let's get on to the questions, which I'm sure everyone is here for. Oh, okay. So basically, we'll be answering a lot of the common questions that were asked on here by video, and then so there are some group of people behind the scenes who will be answering the questions through as well, like typing the answers back. So, right, you just give me a second. If all the panelists want to put their camera on as well. Okay, lovely. Okay, so here we have our first question. Can I do my HPAT and Leaving Cert in 2 different years? Iliam, do you want to answer that, or Orla?
Yeah, I can take that one. So you have to do the HPAT in the year that you've done your Leaving Cert, or yeah, so the year that you want to get into medicine. So you can't do your HPAT in 5th year as like just to get it out of the way. It has to be the same year as your Leaving Cert. So you can hold on to your Leaving Cert points, and so say you don't get your HPAT high enough points in the HPAT, you can repeat the HPAT the next year. But you will have to do the HPAT for every year that you want to try to get into medicine. I hope that was clear. If anyone else has any other points on that.
That's great. I think we'll get on to the next question. So do you need a HPAT for all medical courses?
I could take this one there. So you only need the HPAT in terms of undergrad entry for medicine. Now, the HPAT is used sometimes for graduate entry into occupational therapy and other courses, but the HPAT is only for undergrad medicine. So not for dentistry, not for veterinary. just for medicine undergrad.
Okay, that's great. There's another question here. Are there allowances given to students with special educational needs in the HPAT? I'll just answer that actually. So candidates who have disability or other health-related needs which might interfere with their ability to sit the test in a standard manner, they can apply for reasonable adjustments online via their account as soon as it's possible to register. This year, the deadline for applying for reasonable adjustments is no later than the 3rd of February 2021. So it's already over. So, but it's like the beginning of February if you're going to be taking the HPAT next year. Yeah, so just contact the HPAT Ireland office for advice. Okay, so would you recommend doing a 6-year or a 5-year course? Anyone want to take that one?
I think that was in my section again. So I would really recommend doing the 6-year. I was torn because I wasn't sure if I should spend the extra year in college. I thought it might be a bit of a waste, but it definitely is really beneficial. It gets everyone up to the same level on sciences, and it gives you a chance to relax after the Leaving Cert, because you're going to have been working so hard, and pre-med is a really nice time to relax and kind of get to basics, understand, like get used to college life and living on your own and things like that. So I would definitely recommend it. But we're probably biased because we've all loved our 6-year course. So
I agree. I would recommend a 6-year course. Okay, what do you think about working while studying medicine? Do you think someone could do it? Does anyone, Iliam, do you want to take that? I mean, I think most of our team actually work part-time while studying medicine. So
yeah, like working at the weekends is no problem. Like I do like 20 hours a weekend, and I don't see any issue with it. Like just separate your work life from your studying, which I think if you've managed to get this far, you will manage, and it's very doable to, because you'll be doing it for 6 years, so it'll be grand.
Okay, are there many people in your course that only did one science for the Leaving Cert, or did the majority do 2 sciences? Shay, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think the majority of us did do 2 sciences, but you only need to do 1 science to get into UCD, and you won't really be at any of the, like a disadvantage if you only did 1, so don't be discouraged by that.
Yeah, definitely. And because we have pre-med anyway, you kind of get a nice little top up on all your sciences. So don't worry at all if you've only done 1 science. Okay, what type of jobs suit when you're studying in college? I can tell you, to be honest, like among my housemates alone, I think we all do quite different jobs. I'm like a secretary in a GP. Holly works in Duns. Iliam works in a call center. Troda works in a pharmacy. Our other housemate Gerd is on COVID pay. Very, very lucky. Kway babysits. So like everyone does different things. You know, whatever you enjoy, I suppose, or you can fit with your time schedule. Okay. Another question. If I'm wary about not achieving a high enough Leaving Cert grade in 1 or 2 of my Leaving Cert subjects, would you recommend taking up an extra Leaving Cert subject to try and replace these results, or just spend that time focusing on the HPAT?
I can take that one there. So I actually started off basically like senior psych with like 9 subjects, and quickly didn't go ahead with music and dropped applied maths going into Leaving Cert. You don't take on extra subjects. Don't do that. If you feel like you have to drop to pass on 1 subject, and you want to have all higher level subjects, 6 is fine. You only end up counting your 6, and it's much better that you focus your time on the HPAT, because as you've seen like earlier today, it can make all the difference between getting in or not. So don't be crazy and don't do 9 subjects if you can't do 9 subjects.
I can come into that and say, oh, sorry. So I did 6 subjects as well, and it was definitely the right decision, because I had the 1 less subject or 2 less subjects to study for. Really makes a difference. And just give it your all to those 6 subjects and you'll be able to do good.
Yeah, similarly to that, I did 8 subjects, and I really I did them all higher level, and I just didn't want to drop. Irish was probably my worst, but I'd gone to the Gaeltacht the summer before, and I was like, oh, I've spent all this money and I can definitely get like a H3 in it, so I don't want to drop it. There's no point. But I really wish in hindsight I had dropped it and just put my time into other subjects, because it doesn't matter having an ordinary level subject on your final transcript. Just put the work into the ones that you definitely think you're going to count.
Okay. Oh yeah, I actually quite like this question. So, best piece of advice you've gotten. Do we all want to give one piece of advice? Yeah. Okay, I'll start. No one say. Best piece of advice I've gotten. I think, I don't know, just take the chances, but you've just got to search for opportunities. And I think cold emailing, oh, I feel like a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, but I got a lot of my opportunities from just like calling or talking to random people, and they gave me a chance. And so, you know, if you think someone's research is really cool, or if you think what someone is doing is really, really cool, honestly, just send them an email or send them a message on Twitter. You never know what it might be. And by doing that, they might help you open quite a few doors. So yeah, that's probably the best advice I've ever gotten, and I've used that one quite a lot. So yeah.
I can come in now. I'd say the best advice I got was do a tiny bit at a time. If you leave everything to the last moment, whether it's leaving cert or studying in medical school, you're just going to have to spend so much time studying close to exams. If you just take a tiny bit of time out of each day and do a bit of study, it'll make your life so much easier.
Anyone? Okay, we'll move on. Here's one for Bevan actually. Can you move between the sections in the HPAT?
Unfortunately, you can't move between the sections in the HPAT. So after the time is up, they will announce that the section is over and to turn onto the next page, and you can't return. However, if you haven't answered all the questions, do put in your guesses because you never want to leave a blank in the answer sheet.
Fantastic. Okay, so actually here's a question for Clodagh. How many science subjects do you need to get into medicine?
It sorry, it depends on the college. So in UCD, you can get into medicine with one science subject. I believe with other universities, with other colleges, you need two science subjects. But yeah, there are plenty of people in our course who got in with just the one science subject. That's the whole point of our what we've been referring to as pre-med. It's just what we kind of affectionately call it. It's officially it's just first year, it's stage one out of the 6 year degree, and it's just where you do chemistry, biology, physics, and it gets everyone up to date to start from the same base. So yeah, you don't have to have three science subjects, for example. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. I think this is another one for Bevan actually. How much time do you recommend spend studying on the HPAT?
As I said earlier, it really depends on the person. Now, also depends on what year you are in school. So if you're in 5th year, it's probably not the best idea to be doing loads of practice exams now because you will burn out before the exam, and burnout's not fun. You lose all motivation then. So I'd recommend if you're in 5th year, just read some nice medical books and maybe look at some sample questions every now and again. If you're starting studying about November, maybe take one day in the weekend, do some HPAT study. And if you're starting then in January, maybe allocate 3 days a week, and then the weeks coming up before the HPAT, like 2 or 3 weeks every night. And if you're freezer, and then you know the HPAT is really important and it can make a difference, so it's worth giving the time to it.
Okay, actually, I think there's another one for Bevan. What is considered a good HPAT percentile and would secure me a place in medicine?
That's a really good question. So it depends again on the school. In UCD, I can only speak for UCD. I think that 85th percentile and up is probably a good percentile to get into UCD. Of course, don't be discouraged because you can probably get in maybe the high 70 percentiles in other schools, but I think most people in UCD got over 85th percentile.
Okay. Oh yeah, so I think we've been asked this a lot. Is this talk recorded? Yes, it is recorded. It's also currently being live streamed to YouTube. I think we plan on also like breaking the talks up a bit so it's easy. You don't have to search through a whole hour talk to find the section you want in the future. Where can we get the slides after? We will upload the slides, although I think we're planning on making a website so that it's actually easier for us to then like update our slides as well. Just keep an eye on our social media, like follow us on Twitter and follow us on Instagram, and like you'll find out everything that we're doing. Okay. And then, okay, what sort of setting are your classes in for medicine, and are they mainly practicals or lecture based? Anyone want to answer that?
Oh, I think I just answered that in the chat. We have a mix of lectures. Obviously, they used to be in person, then small tutorials, and then practical anatomy labs with the cadavers. So it's kind of a mix of the three of them, but definitely the majority we would have are like large lecture halls. And in pre-med, then we would have had labs like physics and chemistry labs that were in-person in labs.
Okay, another question. So would it be helpful to take a part-time job in the field you want to study, or take a part-time job with the least amount of stress so you can focus on uni? I might actually start with this. It's quite hard to get a job in the like healthcare, in like a hospital or in a GP, unless you like know someone or you have family connections. I don't know how many applications I sent to like random GPs and hospitals asking if I could literally be their admin. So I think like everyone in our year would probably love to be like a phlebotomist or a healthcare assistant, but it's quite hard to get one. So I don't know. I think just get the job you can find, which you know is the easy, it's convenient and is close to at least home or college. But I don't know. I'll open up to the panel. What does everyone else think?
Yeah, I mean, as Blue said, she was kind of talking about the different jobs we have. Myself and Blue live together. And like I personally, I work in a pharmacy. Um, I think it's quite useful for me, because I'm kind of getting to know the names of like the different medications and the different drugs that are used, but it's really not necessary. And we've kind of talked about this before, how almost the most important thing you can learn when working in a part-time job, say while you're at college, is learning interpersonal skills and learning how to kind of interact with what are your customers in your job, what the kind of, you know, in the future in your career will be the kind of people who are your patients. So I think that's the most important thing you learn from a job. So if you're trying to get a job that will benefit your career, I think any of them where you're kind of having to work with other people will really be so beneficial. I know I've learned so much from just, you know, working. I literally work behind a till and I learned so much. So yeah.
Okay. Is the middle of fifth year too late to get your head down and start studying for the leading cert? Do you want to take that one, Shay?
Yeah, it's definitely not too late. Like I said in my part of the talk, I only started in like February, like after my HPAT, and I still got in. So like it is definitely possible, but the earlier you start definitely is better. Because even when if you start studying in fifth year, when it comes to sixth year and you're revising the topics that you've already looked over, it will be really fast for you to memorize it again. So the earlier the better, but don't think it's ever too late.
Before I get into the next question, I'm just going to remind everyone that there's a short survey to enter. I think as you leave the Zoom, it comes up, so please fill it out. We really want to hear what you thought of our talk and also how we can help you in your applications. So, okay, next question. When do you begin placement / work in your medical course? If you go on placement, is it paid? Oh, I wish. Does anyone else want to answer that?
I mean, you start in the second semester of your fourth year. It's kind of when you start, and we call that like baby res. So it's not like the full thing and it's not as serious, but you kind of do get like a bit of exposure to it. And then for the last 2 years of your 6 year course is when you're really on placement. And no, unfortunately, it's not paid. And I wish it was, but it's not. But it's still really good. And yeah, I don't know if anyone else has anything to say about it.
I mean, we don't have a choice. We kind of have to do it. But I think because of COVID, some final year medics have been able to like work as vaccinators or something. Maybe they got paid for that. I don't know. Anyways, okay. What kind of person is best suited for medicine in your opinion? That's quite a interesting question.
I'd actually really like to answer this question, if that's okay. Because this was something that sort of stopped me from considering medicine for so long. I thought that there was this specific type of person who, you know, suited medicine or had to be in medicine, and I kind of didn't consider myself to be that person at all. Um, so I know it's kind of a vague answer, but there really isn't a specific type of person that suits medicine. There are so, like, all of us here today are all such different people. And in our course in general, everyone's just really different. Like, there's lots of people who are really good at working with people and really enjoy socializing, and then there's some people who don't at all. There's just there's no set person that comes into medicine, and I think that's sort of one of the things that we wanted to put across in the talk today.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that as well. Imposter syndrome is something that a lot of medical students suffer. And so a lot of us feel that we're not in the right place, we're not the right person to be in this place. And if you feel like that, you probably should be here then, because that's how a lot of us feel.
Definitely. And I know that you might think that the HPAT as well might kind of help weed out people with no personal skills, but at the same day, like for the day, people, everyone in our course does care about people. If you wanted, there's a lot of other courses that will you get out of college faster into the working world, making money. Medicine is a long road, but ultimately I have found that everybody in the course really does care at the end of the day, and it's really amazing to find people that are so like-minded to you when you do go into medicine. It's really encouraging. So despite the fact that everyone's so different, everyone is really like-minded in certain ways too.
There's actually a question on here that I want to answer. It says, I'm going into TY next year. Are there any resources for work experience in the medical field? I'm aware it is a tricky field for work experience. I originally applied for medicine in the UK, so you kind of have to have a little bit of work experience before you apply. My biggest advice is just email. I think this was on my profile today, but I emailed like every single hospital in London looking for work experience, and one gave me, like, only one replied, and they gave me like 2 weeks of work experience, and I really was able to like understand what doctors are actually like and how a hospital works. You don't need work experience to apply for medicine in Ireland, and honestly, like, you don't, like, it's not a requirement in the UK either. I think a good place to start is talk to your local GP. Even if they can't give you work experience, they can always just have a little chat with you about what it's like to be a doctor and what medical school is actually like. Otherwise, you can always try and like do some volunteering. You can always volunteer at your local hospital, or maybe even like a hospice. That might be a good one. But yeah, just keep trying, because hopefully someone will give you a chance. Otherwise, RCSI if you look at our step-by-step getting into medicine, we talk about this, but in RCSI, I think they do a mini med day in transition year. I don't know what they're doing this year, because they'll probably be online. Otherwise, I think Vincent's, which is a hospital in Dublin, they also do another transition year like experience program. So definitely have a look into this and have a look at our step-by-step getting into medicine.
I just saw an interesting question there that probably everyone has some answers for. What are any interesting medical books that you'd recommend to people interested in studying medicine? So personally, I think my favourite one that I've read is When Breath Becomes Air. It's really beautiful, very moving, and it'll get you at the heartstrings. But it's a really nice insight. He's extremely empathetic, and his views on like how studying medicine has impacted his life are really lovely. So, if anyone else has any recommendations?
Yeah. Oh,
Go.
will I go? I over the Christmas break, I was very late to the Henry Marsh party. Do no harm. It is Do No Harm, yeah. It was kind of not life changing, but came close to it for me. I thought it was one of the best books I've read. I'm very much a fiction reader. I don't actually read that much nonfiction, but it was definitely one of the best nonfiction books I think I've ever read. It was brilliant. He writes really well. And he was really inspirational. Like, he's a brain surgeon, but he made it seem almost accessible. It was odd. I don't know how to describe how good it is.
I think I recommend all the books in our giveaway, to be honest. Also, Professor Tuberty, he's a UCD neurology professor, and he wrote a memoir about like all the neurology cases he's seen over the years. So I'd really recommend that one because it's quite funny and it's very heartfelt. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, we had so many discussions when we were trying to decide the giveaway books, because there's so many good ones.
Actually, maybe we'll put that up on social media because we couldn't really we had a hard time deciding like the 5 books that we were going to give away. So, I mean, this is
I have a list on
no
my phone.
requirement at all. Like this is just general reading if anyone wants to have a read.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Okay. How do you know what the best way to study for you is if you haven't found a way yet? Does anyone want to tackle that question?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Definitely try out different ways and see which works the best for you. I say that's the best advice I could give, because you might not know like what's the best way to learn, and you might be doing something for a long time. You might see it's not working for you, or you see that like one of your friends is doing something that's really working for them, but it doesn't work for you. But definitely try out different things and you'll find out what's best.
Okay. Yeah, I second that. Just try different things and you'll see. Ask your friends, how are they studying? Oh, if they have like a friend who's doing well in exams as well, just ask them like, how do you study? I think Jean said it at the beginning, but you know, collaborating with your friends and your like team, like, you know, your friends, that's the most important thing. Yeah. Okay. What courses would you recommend as a back route into medicine? Does Iliam, do you want to answer that one? Is he still here?
So the course is a back route. So
yeah.
I suppose that it's because medicine is so science-based. In science in UCD, there's a lot you could specialize in. And if you do science in UCD, it's typically a 4-year course. But if you do only 3 years of it, you will graduate with a general science degree rather than like a specialization in like anatomy or physiology. And then you can do the GAMSAT, which is the graduate entry exam from there. There's also a course in RCSI that is not quite a backdoor, but it allows you to become a physician's associate, which allows you to do kind of similar work in a hospital. There are other courses like biomedical science in GMIT and others that allow you to work in a hospital as a medical scientist. All those allow you to work in hospitals, like obviously being a radiographer. All these allow you to work in hospitals, and then they're like great springboards if you want to do graduate medicine. So like have a look at all those, and they'll give you like some really relevant experience, even if you don't get into medicine, and they could turn out to be great careers.
That's great. Yeah, we'll have a talk. I think I'm thinking after exams, we'll probably have a bit more of a talk about the other options into getting into medicine. We have a few students like who've done mature entry, who did GEM, who took sort of other routes into medicine, have it coming on to AccessMed and having a chat about it. So, okay. This is quite interesting. How realistic is the med student stereotype that is portrayed online, waking up at insane hours, etc.? Who wants to answer that?
Definitely not. This year, in our third year, we've had our first ever 8 a.m. lectures, but before that, it really wasn't anything like that. We'd usually have like 9 a.m. One semester we had a lot of 11 a.m. starts. So definitely, unless you're into early morning starts and you want to get up that time and start studying, you don't need to do it. I mean, when you get to clinical years, of course, you're going to start having to get into the hospitals and stuff for 7:30, but not really at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like everyone in our course is so different, and even on this team, like we're all quite like everyone in AccessMed. I think we're all quite different people, and we all work quite differently. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like.
No, keep going. I was just going to read out another question.
Did the question say something about like how med students are portrayed online or something? Was there?
Yeah.
Because there's all of those like, oh, like med student like study day in my life sort of videos where they like get up at like 5 a.m. and you're like, what? I don't know, maybe there are some people here that get up at 5 a.m. but I don't think many, like, I don't know, it depends on how well you work as well. Like some people work really well if they get up really early in the morning, but I don't know, I don't think it's that, none of us are that crazy.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, I mean,
we all have lives, like we all have, as we said, like a lot of us have part-time jobs, a lot of us have other interests like sports or, you know, other extra curricular stuff. When we were able to do a lot more with our societies, a lot of us are involved quite heavily with societies here actually, so stuff like that. So it's not like all we do is go to the library and study. That's definitely not true.
Yeah, I mean, I promise you we all have a social life. But yeah, I mean, definitely before COVID, I feel like, or you were having pre-drinks at least once or twice a week. So, I mean, anyways, okay. Are social skills with patients something you have or something you can improve over time?
Definitely, you can improve it over time. I personally did my own volunteering last year in a hospital to work in a palliative care just because I was scared of the idea of talking to patients. And I realized within like a day or two, it's absolutely not as scary as you think it's going to be. And I know not many people do that. Like I was just scared myself about it. But you definitely do learn a little bit about how to talk to patients, even from from second year. So you will be taught how to communicate with patients appropriately. So don't be scared about it. You will learn.
What are some advice you could give to future med students? Anyone want to hop on that one?
One thing I'll say, just a little point, is when you go into pre-med, you might be stressed out by like the depth of sciences in them. I definitely was. I was thinking I was going to have to get grinds for physics or something. And while the content is hard, the exams are not that hard. There's loads of past papers and the questions are really similar every year. So don't stress, just go through the past papers, and once you get through pre-med, the stuff becomes much more like the typical medicine stuff you're really excited to start studying, so it gets way more interesting.
Okay, I think we'll take about 2 or 3 more final questions, and then we might have to wrap it up since it is 8:46. Oh yeah, really quick one. Will I be able to use my HPAT in a university in the UK? No, sorry, you have to take other exams. They're called the UCAT, BMAT. You should look, there's loads of information online about applying to medicine in the UK, and they're all free. And yeah, so I'll definitely take a look into that. Was there ever a time in secondary school where you doubted whether you wanted to do medicine? Anyone want to take that?
Yeah. I mean, I thought about it for a second, discounted it completely, and then went back to it. But even when I went back to it, I wasn't at all sure. Even like I remember talking to someone when I got my CAO results, and they were like, "Oh, medicine, I didn't know you wanted to do it." And I was really like, "Oh, well, I don't even know if it is what I want to do." But when I came in, I was like, "Okay, yeah, I made the right decision." So yeah, definitely doubted it a lot of times. But there's nothing to lose by putting it on your CAO, giving the HPAT a go, and coming to talks like this and seeing if what we're talking about makes you excited about studying or potentially studying medicine.
Yeah, I think just try and talk to as many people as you can. We're all here. Our Twitter handles and Instagram, send us loads of DMs, and we'll get through them. We'll answer any questions you have. Yeah, talk to your local GP. I think that's a very easy place to start. Okay.
Well, be careful when talking to your local GP, because my GP told me not to do medicine. So also take what they say with a pinch of salt too. I think talking to past pupils is the best. I had engineering on my CAO up until the HPAT results came out. So don't be scared to change as well. And the only way, I'm glad everyone here today, the fact that you're here today means that you actually want to learn, which is you're on the right path already.
Okay, this is our last question. I'm really sorry, guys. I didn't expect us to get so many questions, especially the moment we started the Q&A. I feel like they all just started flooding in. So if we haven't answered your question, just DM us on Instagram or on Twitter, and we will get through them in the next few days. Okay. Did any of you or any med students, do ordinary level maths for the leaving cert? Do you think you're left at a major disadvantage if you do? Anyone want to take this? Not quite sure.
So yeah, you don't need higher level maths to get into UCD medicine, which is great. Some colleges you do, so keep an eye on that. But if you are struggling at maths, don't let that be the reason to stop you from applying. I didn't do biology before going into medicine. I was scared about that, but I picked it up pretty fast. So there's no really complicated maths, and apart from physics in first year, you probably won't really need the calculator too much in the rest of your medical career.
Okay, I'm really sorry, guys. I think we're gonna have to finish off the question section there. Otherwise, I feel like we might be here until 10 p.m. and I don't want to keep anyone here. There's just a few things I need to say and I will let you all go. If you just give me 1 second. Okay, so our book giveaway winners. So I think these are for people who have been tweeting at us during the event. So Malin, Apar, 10, and Lauren X Greeley, please DM us on Instagram or Twitter and we will get these 2 wonderful books out to you. Thanks so much for taking part in our giveaway. Okay, so basically this whole AccessMed thing, it really was a massive team effort. I think there's a lot of faces here you might have not seen tonight because they've been working really hard behind the scenes, trying to answer your questions or running the social media and all of that. So I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone on the team. We wouldn't have been able to do this without everyone's really, really hard work. So yeah. And lastly, thank you guys for coming to our event, especially I think the remaining like 600 people who still stayed throughout the Q&A. Just another reminder to please fill out our post-event survey so that you can access our financial scholarships and grants database, our HPAT scholarship information. There's also a step-by-step getting to medicine like roadmap thing. And there's also another one which has like free resources for the HPAT. Do follow us on Instagram and Twitter. You can keep up to date with us. We also have a Discord that we're trying to get up and running. So we'll let you know as soon as that's ready. And please stay in touch with us. We plan on running more events, courses, mentoring. You know, this is just the beginning. And as I said in the survey, please let us know, you know, what you like, kind of like what you want and how we can basically help you guys get into medicine, because we would love to see you in UCD in like 2 years time or 1 year's time, and so we can, you know, dance with you in the clubhouse and all of that. So yeah, thank you very much for coming to our event. Make sure to fill out the survey.
Thanks so much, everyone.